Good evening, everybody. Welcome to CW Live. My name's Chris Webb, Head of Communications at the CW. Delighted to have with me our Deputy General Secretary, Postal, Terry Pullinger. Good evening, Terry.
Good evening, Chris.
Yeah, so we're going to give you a little bit unusual tonight. So we've tried historically, and Terry's done dozens and dozens of these Q&As where it's all over to you, the members. We've also tried this sort of update, State of the Nation stuff, where we give you an update from the talks. What Terry and myself are going to aim to do tonight is merge the two together. So you're going to get an update from Terry on where we are with the talks with Royal Mail Group, and then we're going to pull out the very best of your questions and perhaps some of the worst of your questions as well. So again, and I think this is one of the reasons we're so proud to be CW is, once again, this union won't be ducking anything. So, obviously we'd ask you to be respectful. With that in mind, I can see already 40 comments already. We'll try and pull through the best of them. Just before I hand over to Terry, if you could like the post, share it, and get it out amongst your colleagues, that would be fantastic. And also let us know where you're watching from, because we'll put the best of those on screen as well. But the main man, over to Terry Pullinger. Terry.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And absolutely, people send in your questions and you say bring out the bad. I think people need to start hearing some of the bad, not just us, but Royal Mail management. And we're in these talks making representation. We're trying to feed back some of the stuff that's going on out there, some of the chaos locally and people's concerns about where we are in these talks, etc., etc., etc. And, people have made a sterling effort, and we're about, it won't be long, blink of an eye, and we'll be into Christmas pressure and everything else, and that could be absolutely horrendous. We keep making these points to management, and they keep poo-pooing it, and people are brilliant, and people are okay, and the union's overplaying it. So, and also for us, we got to test our structures. Last week, we met all of our senior field officials face-to-face in Liverpool, legally compliant on that week. Anyway, it changes week to week. We probably won't get away with it this week, but we managed to do that. It was great to see everybody, and it was great to get that feedback face-to-face on what's going on out there, and people are saying, well, what's going on in these talks? Let's have some detail. What is it what are they talking about on pay? What do the company want our people to do, etc., etc.? So other than the sort of propaganda material that went out during the dispute, people aren't getting that, and we are desperate to tell people. And I will explain. We're saying that to management as well, but on a lot of these things, we are held to confidentiality, and I expect there'll be all the accusations, pointed at us, the union, if we go out, we're trying to make things inflammatory. But I've got to tell you, these stuff in these talks that's really tough, and our people, in my opinion, they need to know about it. And we're back in talks next week, and we ended this week putting the same pressure on management that we got to get out and start telling the truth about the issues we're dealing with in these negotiations, so people know the scale and the complexity of these talks that we're having. So, we had our senior field officials together, as I've already said. That posed loads of questions about where we are and people's need to know. Then we had the shareholder, Royal Mail's AGM, shareholder AGM. That sent the press off in a spin about all sorts of things about Royal Mail and stuff that we're discussing in the talks. It also, in my opinion, I was very critical of it, of the statement that Royal Mail put out, because there was huge inference that the problem is the trade union and that we don't embrace change and we won't deal with new technology and all this sort of stuff. When we have gone into these talks in the right spirit, but to some degree have been shackled with what it is we can and can't talk about. Now that's now becoming unacceptable. So I want people to understand that. Stuart Simpson put out a statement today and said that we're discussing pay. Now, without anything to back that up, that makes people, I would imagine that lifts people thinking, hello, we're going to get a pay deal here. There's going to be something, a rabbit out of the hat, and there's going to be a great pay deal. And, I would counsel you on that. But he put out a statement today saying that the talks are going well and everything else, but still no detail. And I know what's going to happen. People will come on here and say, well, I listened to that for an hour, and that's an hour I'm never going to get back in my life because it's given me no detail. So, I'm going to try and speak as honestly as I can without breaking the detail of some of these talks, the confidentiality of it. But it's, that's got to come to an end at some point. People are going to have to know what we're talking about, and there's going to have to be some formal stuff put on the table so that we can properly engage with our members and our fellow activists and how we find an acceptable way forward. Royal Mail also, I mean, they're out there, they've got these ambassadors, haven't they? And they're these change story and, you know, they're talking to people about that sort of stuff, but people want to hear the detail. People also want to know how we're going to get to grips with what's going on currently in the workplace, where the reports I'm getting, and people contact me, is that there's chaos in the workplace, that the USO's not getting delivered, that letters are just being stacked to one side or whole deliveries on occasions. Everything's on packets, etc., even though our levels of sick have gone back to what they would normally be at this moment in time. And please God, they get better or stay as they are, but as we go forward. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff out there. It's not just the big ticket issues. It's not just the big parcel hubs and everything else that we're dealing with. It's the day-to-day as well. And this is an opportunity. So people want to come on and tell us what the bad is. You can level that at me if you like. That's fine. I can take that. I can try and answer your questions. But I know management listen to these things, watch these things. So here's your chance. Come on and say, because I've got to tell you, on most occasions, they don't believe what we're saying about how difficult life is for our members at the moment and the expectation we've got of any agreement coming out of these talks.
Thank you, Terry. So we've got masses and masses of questions, you can imagine. And I just got to say to people, you know, we got Terry for an hour. I'm sure if we squeeze him, he'll give us 10 minutes more, as he always does. But, you know, we're not going to be able to get rid of through the 700 comments that we have got on here. But let's get through them. Less from me, more from you then. So pay is a big one. So let's just pick this one out because it's a bit more of a humorous one. Terry, Mark says, get the pay rise sorted so Julian can afford to get around in at the pub. Julian, don't be so tight, mate. Get your work makes a pint. But Terry, pay's a big issue that's coming up. People are asking where the pay rise is.
Well, and Chris, I've got to tell you, I understand that. And there's a mixed bag on that because of where the nation is, because of what we're hearing about other people's jobs, because we've heard about the finances of Royal Mail. There are people, not just management, there's people in the union trying to suggest, like I say, it's a mixed bag, that people aren't interested in pay. Personally, I don't believe that. I think they're absolutely, and I'm sure that there'll be many people express that point. But my point is this on pay. If people have got an expectation about a pay deal, there's a reason for that, and that's because it was in the joint statement we signed with the executive chairman and with the CEO of this company. The CEO who's come out and told you today that there is talks on pay. So forget all this about it's impossible to have a pay deal in this current situation. Forget that it's impossible to have a pay deal even if you're in a recovery plan situation that may be spread over a number of years. It is absolutely possible to have a pay deal. And if it wasn't, then management wouldn't have put it in that joint statement. The other issue on pay is where the business are now. They have clearly, in our opinion, breached the natural progressive structure of that joint statement, which was very carefully put together and took a long time, if you remember. And the argument that Dave Wald and myself put forward was that we would do very quick, light touch revision activity to try and get our duties more structured to deal with what was going on during the pandemic, i.e. less hugely drop in letters, massive parcels and packets, etc. Try and get our duty structured so it wasn't just daily chaos, that people sort of knew what they were doing and we could get it in a fair and even way and all that sort of stuff. But in order to do that light touch revision activity at that time, we said, because we were stepping back the dispute issue and the joint statement, there was 5 key parts. Okay, so the first part was understanding the finance. The second part was doing these light touch revisions and getting some trials moving forward, getting terms of reference on those trials, etc. So and the third thing was pay. Then there was 4 and 5. 4 and 5 was about the future design, the parcel network, etc., the strategic direction of the company, and 5 was all about the growth agenda, the USO, etc. And the joint statement said they understood. We put a tight timescale on it, and all the people in the room knew that that was heroic, saying it would all be done by the end of July. That's why it says in the joint statement that items 4 and 5 could be extended. So it is clearly saying 1 to 3 come before that. The company now has changed, moved the goalposts. They don't want to talk about a straight 1-year pay deal for 2020. They want to talk about a longer term deal that deals with everything. And if that would have been the case when we was in the room, Dave and I, then clearly the pay element would have come at number 5, not number 3. So they can play on words, etc., etc. But we are where we are at this moment in time. So we can have a pay deal. They've accepted that. They put it in the joint statement, and it is very important. And just on that one question, Chris, one of the difficulties we've got is this week they have put to us, how can I say it? They're calling it a summary now, but it's not a formal offer, but it's it's sort of a framework for pay over a 3-year period. So they're saying it's not a formal offer. They're saying that I can't discuss the detail of it. But I have to say to you, don't get carried away with that, because it absolutely, if it's just the start of a negotiation on pay, then let me tell you, it starts at the lowest possible place. So whilst I can't give you the detail of it, what I can say to you is, because this isn't the detail or the structure of them talks, and obviously we got to continue to negotiate, but as a start point on an informal or a non-formal offer, or not even an offer, whatever it is, I don't know what it is we had, but it wasn't an offer. I can tell you for a 3-year period, it is the start point of that is less than what they've just given the managers for 1 year.
Thank you, Terry. Fantastic. So again, trying to summarize some of these questions, and I got one here from Darren, and a reason I put this one up, Terry, is to give you a bit of a background. There's just member after member saying the company's finished, it lacks ambition, and Darren says here, or Royal Mail actively pursuing letter contracts, it doesn't feel like they are, and there's just a feeling amongst, I would say, there's 70 or 80 comments I'm trying to bring together here in one. People saying that the company's ambition doesn't seem to match that of the union's leadership, i.e. yourself.
Well, that's been our concern for a number of years now, and people will know in all of our agreements, both when Dave was doing this job and now since I've been doing that job, and the 4 pillars, we push this issue of growth. It cannot be just about parcels and packets. If it is, then we just end up going in the same direction of these other companies. The USO will just drift away from us, and then we'll be forever in talks with the business trying to push to the lowest possible denominator in terms of terms and conditions, because most of those other parcel companies, we all know what they are: gig economy type jobs, no real security, people pressured to the nth degree every hour they're at work, and no pension security either. Now we and the company have agreed that's not what we want for Royal Mail. So Royal Mail has definitely got to grow. They've got to grow, not just to have diversity and other revenue streams coming in, but I think to us more importantly is to build on this magnificent universal service that connects every single person in this country 6 days a week, has proven to be so important. If ever there was a time, if people had forgot and suddenly thought it was no longer warranted or it ain't worth having, then this pandemic has proven that wrong. That's why we were key workers. And with more and more people losing their jobs, there's people predicting 4 million unemployed for the first time ever. People are going to need that connectivity. They're going to need the equality that we give every single citizen in this country, that we will deliver to every address 6 days a week at a uniform price. We got to build on that. Now, whether that's us doing medicines or prescriptions or other services for people clearly want the doorstep service. That's why the online stuff has become so popular. Well, we've got to do more. There's got to be more innovation in Royal Mail. There's got to be more effort put into that. They've got to bring in more expertise to say, what can we do? What can that be? But what I hear, Chris, is this, okay? So during this pandemic, sure, there's a lot of high street shops that are closing and people are losing their jobs and everything else. But if you listen to the ones that are talking about their online operations, they are all saying how that has massively gone through the roof. So whilst their revenues have gone up, their costs are making them not make profit because of the cost of the pandemic. And a lot of that is the same for Royal Mail. Let's be honest, that's the same for Royal Mail. But when I listen to some of them people, they are talking their company up. They're saying that is not a reason to start ditching their workforce, not rewarding their workforce. That massive uplift, once we come out of the pandemic and certain other costs drift away, that has incentivized those companies to start looking at innovation. What more can they do online? What more can they do? Get into people's doorsteps. And that's what we need from Royal Mail, and we're not getting that. You know, the conversation is all about cuts. It's all about getting the money down as quick as possible, get shareholder return going back in. So no, we do not sense the company having the same ambition as this trade union. We believe it is possible for us to still be the company, the most trusted, and we are. There's polls that say we are the most trusted online provider in this country, and we got to build on that. Other companies, I believe, would be building on that. Instead of that, we had all the press last week, which was some papers talking about you got to smash this union before you can move Royal Mail forward, etc., etc. What they're really saying is get the union out of the way so we can come in there, give the bare minimum to the people who work in this company, and just give more to shareholders. We believe in this company. We believe in this great public service and always have done. We want it to grow. We work with a company. We will embrace new technology to do that, but we won't do it at the expense of our members and their jobs and their futures. So, you know, that's where we are. But we don't believe that they got anywhere near the ambition that we seem to have for this great institution.
Thank you, Terry. So another subject matter, we talked about this before we went on air, is shared vans. And I can just to tell you, and I think you were saying the same thing, on our page, I can see dozens of comments saying, get us back in the vans. I can see dozens of comments saying, don't get us back in the vans. Mark here, you can see on your screen, says the R rate increase, Royal Mail to trial 2 in a van, putting everyone at risk. At the Yorkshire trial next week, is it agreed? So, you know, a word if you can on the shared vans, and, you know, perhaps maybe that's something we pick up in another session with Mark Boach and Dave Joyce and others. I don't know, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the officers are dealing with the detail on some of this stuff. I mean, I understand the confusion. I totally understand the confusion because this country is a mess, isn't it? The way it's been dealt with by this government. You know, stuff this week, we're going to put a curfew at 10 o'clock at night. I mean, what's that about? What difference does that make? 10 o'clock at night? That's just about cutting across people's individual freedoms. You can't be on the street after 10 o'clock at night. It's just nonsense. You know, you can't get 2 in a van, but you can all go and get on a train or a plane and fly off somewhere. So I understand why people would be confused. I understand for a lot of our members, if they're trying to get out to a delivery point to then have work brought out to them, whether they're getting a bus or however they're getting there, you know, that must be major aggravation on top of what they're having to do. You know, that must be something you want to, you know, you potentially curse every day. Maybe there's someone who's happy with it. I don't know. You're right to say there's a mixed bag. There is not like an absolutely one position by our members that we want to get 2 back in a van. People will be concerned. What the union has to do, we're trying to ignore all the stuff that's going on around us and what their other, you know, people are being told they can and can't do, going to work or not go to work, etc., etc. We are trying to do what we always do. We're trying to do the safest thing possible. So I know the officers have involved Dave Joyce, our National Health and Safety Officer. And if there's a move on any of this stuff or a change to what we're currently doing at the moment, then our officers won't sign that off unless they're convinced that it's safe for us to do so. And it's a huge call. And it is a huge call. And I know in saying that, there's going to be those that want to get back 2 in a van saying, what's the matter with you? You know, sort yourself out. Let us get back in a van. And there's those that are saying, you know, I'm really concerned about that. And maybe that's, you know, maybe if we do move on it, maybe that's part of what we need to do. You know, we need to be sensitive to the views of people, etc. But, you know, for all I know, there's 4 people coming to work together in the same car. And so it's, I understand the confusion, but it ain't an easy one for our officers. And it's a massive call for us to be absolutely convinced that it's as safe as ours is, because what we don't want to lose. It's bad enough, you know, we've been key workers, we've lost a lot of our workers. We don't want to lose any more people. And as someone just put on here, it is spiking again, isn't it? So if it was continually falling, or if it had been dealt with properly like it has been in other countries and they're not got any cases, then I don't think it'd be an issue with people. But to start talking about it now, just as it's spiking again, understandably raises the issue as concerns of our people and makes it even harder for our national officers or our health and safety national officer to make that call, to make that judgment. So it is being discussed. To my knowledge, I don't know if it's been agreed. I don't know. I believe there was even potentially talks this afternoon on it. So I certainly haven't heard whether it's agreed we're doing it next week or not. I don't know.
Thank you, Terry. Another question, trying to group them together. I'm going to put 2 at you at once if I can. Chloe's asking here, as you can see on your screen, is our strike ballot still valid? Lots of people asking that. Lots of people also saying, why don't we have another strike ballot and go on strike?
Yeah, no, it's not still valid. It's run out of time now. And to be quite honest, regardless of where we are with the employer, I think everyone understands that we did the right thing. I understand people's anger again. I don't think we don't have it, but for us to start, going on strike during this pandemic wouldn't have been acceptable to the people of this country. Our members' value of what they do has gone through the roof during this pandemic, and that's the very reason why our people deserve a decent reward, and that the company should do the right thing. And we're making that representation in our negotiations. But in all honesty, if we have to go again, so we had 3 ballots, that's not where we want to be. We understand the challenges. We need a new agreement for this company. We need a new approach which stops describing this union as dinosaurs and things like that, which we're absolutely not. And I come back, Chris, I've got to say, I want to sort of use that point again. In the statement Royal Mail put out, it said about the technology that they call hours data capture, which is about using a swipe in, swipe out, clock in and out sort of system. The report Royal Mail put out to the press was that they wanted to bring that in, clocking in and out in the modern automated way that other industries have been doing for years, rather than the paper signing in, signing out that we have. Now, that was another inference that it's this union that has blocked that, and it's totally not true. We've embraced technology. We've got more technology in people's hands now when they're out on delivery, time deliveries, transactions on the doorstep. We automate, totally automated letters. We're not opposing the automation of parcels. It's a totally wrong impression of this trade union that's being put by the board there, and I don't think they did anything to defend us when we have entered these talks in the right spirit. So yes, that's something I've got the proper ump about. But we keep going. But if we reach a point where some of these things can't be concluded and we have to go again, then we will defend our members. On the new technology issue, we're making it absolutely clear, and there's a link here. There's a link between technology, productivity, and the changes they want to constantly drive, the procedures that they use, the HR procedures, whether it's conduct, whether it's capability, all these things. There's a link between new technology, procedures, and productivity. If we don't get that right, then in our opinion, what that means is our members will be under constant pressure to do more, to work harder, faster, like other companies have gone down. And Royal Mail say, no, we're not doing that. The board described it of clocking in and out with this technology. Well, in these talks, and these are only, these are talks, so it's put on the table and we have to negotiate it out. But in these talks, that's not what management are saying. They're talking about tracking people all around an office. They're talking about tracking you if you go off to the Kazi, if you leave the floor in any way, you leave a work. They want to build up a bank of data on every individual in every single operational unit, and then suggest there's something wrong with us when we worry about how they might use that stuff. So if we get to the point, Chris, where we can't get agreements on these issues and the company says they're just going to impose them, then this union's never been afraid of defending itself, and we would, without doubt. But that's not where we want to be. We want to thrash this stuff out and get a proper agreement that gives our members the security they deserve, give them the security, job security, standard living, pension security, and also means that their daily work isn't some world where you're just driven every day to work harder and faster for every single minute you're employed. That's not the type of deal we're going to do.
Thanks, Terry. Another thing that's been said, and we've talked about this so much in terms of you and I mean, in terms of how we communicate through this process with our members. And, people go, every time we log on, is this the deal? Is this when I'm finding my pay rise? Mark here would saying, don't announce an update when there's nothing to say. And people were saying, this is waffle, this is just talk. But I suppose the other side of that coin is we go silent for months. What's your view on how we communicate through this process, essentially?
Well, I think it'd be totally wrong for us not to do this, whether Mark don't enjoy the content, but I think there is content here. It's as a psychological thing going on where we're getting members asking and asking, come and give us an update on the talks. I have just explained, if people are listening, that I would love to sit here and give you far more detail than what's been put on the table this week. But when it's presented in strictest confidence and without prejudice, and it's not a formal offer like on pay or whatever, we have to honour that. Otherwise, the company would just use that as another reason to say that this union isn't honourable and we're not dealing with it in the right way and we're deliberately trying to whip up our members, etc., etc. We get all them accusations. So we are going in there every week. You know, if not every other week, we've come on here and do a briefing and tell you where we are. I can only tell you what I can tell you. Before we even started this, Chris, I said to you we would get that question. I couldn't predict it would be Mark. But I did say to you, we're going to get people saying, you know, I've wasted that hour of my life and you can't tell me, you ain't told me nothing new. Well, I have told you exactly where we are. The company is coming out talking to you all the time. I hope you say the same things to them, Mark. I hope you're getting stuck into them. But I want to hear as well. Tell me what you think, Mark. Tell me where you are on pay. Do you think we deserve a pay deal? Tell me what's happening in your workplace. If indeed you're a postman. But I ain't worried, mate. You come on as strong as you like, and I'll answer it as I see fit, as strong as I like as well. So don't just put a bland statement like that. Don't be like, you know, Jack the Lad. We can all do that. Be John Wayne down a computer screen. Come on and tell me your views about what you think is acceptable with what's going on at the moment.
Thanks, Terry. So a similar theme, not so pointed, but lots of people. And I think this is, you know, I don't think I know because we both know our members really well. I think it's very, very genuine. Summed up by Marion here, who says they're just playing with the union. There's a sense amongst the comments, Terry, that, you know, somehow, like, you know, the union's gone along and the ballot's been timed out and we're being played with, and this is part of Royal Mail's plan, and therefore we're finished. Someone's just put that on the comments. Actually, the union's finished. What would you say about, like, you know, the balance of power, if you like, at this situation at the moment?
Well, what I'd say is the first thing is the union ain't me or Dave Ward or anyone else. The union is you, the members. The union is us. The union is everyone standing and sticking together. Have they played us? Have they played our ballot? Well, they may think they have. They may think they have. But I'm saying to you that our situation with our ballot wasn't just Royal Mail, was it? It was a pandemic. It was something that we've never seen in this country in our lifetimes, that has totally changed the face of everything. So it wasn't just, you know, it isn't as simple as just saying, oh, they run out their ballot. Well, they might have done. But listen, the law of the land is your ballot runs out in 6 months in any event. So had we been on strike 6 times in the last 6 months or 12 times in the last 6 months, we'd have had people saying, what are we doing? Keep going on strike, do a deal. I can't afford it. Well, take more action. Let's go indefinite. Yeah, everyone's got a different opinion about how we move things forward. The real key is we stand together and we're as strong as we can possibly be to negotiate an agreement. We don't just do these things to go on strike. So at 6 months anyway, we would have had to reballot if it hadn't been resolved. And this is a massive issue we're talking about. This is an industry changing discussion that we're having. This is the docks. This is the print. This is the miners. We got to make sure we don't want to make any mistakes here. We want to make sure we explore every avenue to get the right agreement to protect our members and protect as many jobs as possible in the you know, with the onslaught of new technology, etc., and also protect a great public service. We're not just going to do that by striking. We've got to negotiate as much as we can. If we get to the point where they are making us feel like we're irrelevant, and if they were doing that now, we wouldn't even be in the room, by the way. And if they thought we was irrelevant, they'd have been coming through you now, you know, like a knife through butter out there in all of our units. You know that. You know there was 600 local disagreements on what they wanted to do. They haven't done that. So there is still sufficient respect that they know they have to deal with this union. All across the country, workers are being dumped on from a massive height. And I'll tell you what, I'm not hearing all the other unions kick off about what they're doing about it. We're in there negotiating the best deal we can get for you and for the future of this industry. We're in the room genuinely. We made a statement. We want to go in there, resolve our dispute, work with management for the best interests of you and for the people of this country and the company. That's what we're doing. And despite at times that being incredibly difficult, like the last few weeks we've had, we're hanging in there because we will explore every avenue to do that deal. The moment that crashes or management go in a different direction or they do something to our people, we will go again and we will defend our people. We are people of honour and we will try every can to get that agreement. So saying that the union don't exist, what I would say to you is you just think for a minute what life would be like. As bad as it is in your eyes, what would it be like now if this union wasn't here? What would this business have looked like over the last 2 years if it weren't for the stand this union have made? Not just the union's leadership, I'm saying this union. That is every one of our members who has stood with us. Like us or loathe us, whatever you want to do. Your best chance is everyone in this union standing together, sticking together and giving us as much support as you possibly can. Because trust me, you'll be getting nothing if it wasn't for this trade union.
Thank you, Terry. Brilliant. One of the things people might notice, got television behind me. Not ignoring the brilliant words of Terry. I've been trying to keep an eye on the press conference that's been going on with the government. And Ian didn't need to because so many of you put it in the comments, Terry. But Ian's just said here that Boris has just announced on the news, which you can see behind me, that a second wave is coming and telling people to prepare, and there'll be ramifications of that. And obviously that's context as well. And you can't just avoid it and pretend that this situation in the world, not just the UK, is going on. And additionally, does that fit into what the stuff you were saying about public support? I mean, because I think you're right. I mean, as someone who monitors the union's communications channels, I can't ever remember a time where the love for our members and respect for our members was as high as it is now. So, we wouldn't, it's about making sure we leverage that rather than destroy it, I suppose, in some ways, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, well, absolutely. I mean, not just from our point of view, but certainly from a company point of view. I mean, why wouldn't you be using that? But I almost get the impression at the moment that the company's more worried about shareholders and what the shareholder behaviour than they are about the real issue at hand, which is protecting this great institution. I mean, we didn't agree with it being privatised, did we? And if it wasn't privatised, it would be a different conversation we'd been having now in the context of a public service. So it is a private company, but it has got a private service obligation. And there's a real concern that people, shareholders and that, are trying to push as hard as possible to reduce that, because they know it's, in some ways, it's a barrier to them getting as much money out of the business as they can. People talk about the USO. You don't need the brains of Lloyd George, do you? If you say we're only going to deliver letters 3 days a week, they can wipe out a load of jobs, massive job losses, and loads of money saved, and shareholders get their dividend. Well, lovely. That's what it's all about for them people. Don't let these people try to intellectually take you down a road where we have to start accepting the minimum of everything. I'm not in that place, and I would never recommend that to any of our members. And don't forget, ultimately, whatever it is we come out with, our members will be tested on that, because if we get an agreement, our members vote on it. So it should be. This is a brilliant company. It's a magnificent invention. You go right back to the penny black, and it's still, when someone dreamed that up, one price goes everywhere, every address in the country. It was a fantastic idea. It stood over 500 years. It's appreciated by everybody. But there's institutions who would like to unravel that because they know there's loads of money can be saved, and etc. So, as I say, we stand in defence of it, and we try to negotiate the agreement to protect that and to protect our members' jobs. And yes, I don't think they're giving anywhere near enough leverage to the fact that at the moment, postal workers in every household in this country will be massively admired, and will continue to be admired. If we're now saying there's going to be a second wave, then you've got to assume at some point there'll be another lockdown of some sort, whether it's by town or by region. But sure as eggs, they'll still expect our members to go out there and be key workers arriving on the doorstep. And if people are locked down, our members must know how grateful them people have been for the existence of a postal worker. We should build on it, and we should defend it.
Thank you, Terry. Slightly off the dispute, if you like, in terms of negotiations, although you may be able to correct me there. Steve Butt's summing up a comment from lots and lots of people here who are saying there's a need for an LTB on average holiday pay in the pending tribunal. Lots of questions about that subject matter for you, Terry.
All right, thanks, Steve. Well, I mean, on the language of priorities, that is proceeding. I'd have to go back to a brief of where we are on that, because don't forget, all court cases and everything else have been held up because of this pandemic. We'd have to go back to that. Of course, that's not just our position. We're arguing that's a legal position. And if we're successful on that, it's even more money that the company's got to pay out. So, we're arguing for pay. We're arguing for lots of things here for our members. And that's one of the subjects. So, Steve, I'm not in a position. I'll say thanks for the question. I was with Steve last week. I wish you'd have asked last week rather than online in front of what I presume is millions of people. But we'll try and get an LTB out. I'll tell you what we're concentrating on, Chris, is getting an LTB out that can give our reps and our members as much information as possible on these talks. Coming off of the back of this session we're having, we're trying to pull that together now. It's quite difficult because we have to be careful with the language because of what we are and what we're not meant to be allowed to tell people. But we will be doing that. Don't read it, Mark. You'll suggest there's not enough information in it, but it will be quite a big LTB. We're going to get that out so that people can talk to the members in the workplace. And I think what we're going to get back to, Chris, is where we was trying to do bulletins, on different aspects of the talks. And also you and I have spoken this evening about, getting the industrial officers on just to talk about a specific issue, and then we can do perhaps another one at another time rather than take a whole raft of questions on lots of different issues. But okay, Steve, we'll try and look where we are and get an LTB out on average pay. But I think the difficulty we've got at the moment is people taking their holidays because of the pandemic, and the companies fear that people have built up so much holiday. How are they going to exhaust that before the next financial year, and which goes on top of their holiday entitlement for that year as well. So how are people going to take their leave is quite a prominent discussion as well. So we'll try and get something out on that, but we will definitely be concentrating on getting an LTB out to try and give people more information of where we are in these talks.
Thank you, Terry. From Steve to Stephen. Chris, tell him the union reps are firm, but under the most intense pressure to deal with day-to-day issues. We all need so much for support. So I don't need to tell him. You can tell him yourself, Stephen. There you go, mate. But there is quite a few of our reps, Terry, and listen, I don't need to even need you to answer it in lots of ways, because your support for our local reps is legendary in terms of how much you think of them as the backbone of the union. But maybe a message for them out there in the field finding it difficult at this moment.
Well, unbelievable. And I don't just think a lot of them. I think of myself still as a local rep. And I'll be honest with you, everything that I'm confronted with, one of my first thoughts is always, what would we have thought of this locally? How would we have dealt with this locally? So well, fortunately for me, I've never lost that view of things. So yes, I do try and think of the reps at every level. It must be absolutely horrendous at the moment for a local rep. It has been for a few years now, but the pressure during this pandemic must be massive. And sometimes those pressures, maybe people shy away a bit. Maybe there's people who don't want to be a rep, but the greatest respect to anyone who's a local rep at the moment. And all I can do, it's not so much speak to the reps, it's speak to the members, because listen, if anyone thinks they can do a better job in our union, then put yourself forward. Just imagine what it's like. It's not the one complaint you've got, it's the complaint that the whole office has got that we give to that rep, and then they're carrying that around like a burden trying to deal with it. People will have views about whether they got a good or a bad rep, etc. But the start point for me is anyone who's prepared to put themselves forward and actually into the firing line, in many ways they'll do for me, because that's the start point. That takes a lot of courage just to wear the reps tag. But in this current environment, it must be horrendous. I mean, just today, I've had a guy has sent me some photos of his delivery today, which is, there's loads of bags that have just been dumped on his walk, parcels and packets in sacks and that for him to deliver. And he's saying to me, it's just getting absolutely unbearable trying to do the job. In these talks, it's like management are suggesting that perhaps we should everyone's got to have a minimum of a 5-hour span, increase the geography that someone's got to walk and things like that. So something's got to give here. Someone's got to realise how tough these jobs are. And I'm sure the reps make as much representation as they can, but these managers that have just been rewarded, by the way, you'll get good and bad in them as well, you know, but some of them just try and do whatever they want to do, and maybe they're amused by the amount of work that our people are having to do here. I'm not doing that job. I can't even appreciate fully what that must be like, other than my belief that it must be horrendous trying to do that job at the moment with the masses of parcels and packets, you know, instead of the amount of letters we used to deliver. But then, you know, having loads of packets and parcels brings its own problems, especially when you're delivering it, you know, on foot and et cetera, et cetera. So, no, nothing but the greatest respect for our reps, but also the greatest respect for our members, even the ones who have a pop at us. Don't think for 1 minute that we're not empathetic, and we are trying to do our best in our room to get some order to that. So, yeah, fair play, great respect to everyone. And listen, go easy on your rep, because you could always swap with them and for a day and just see how hard that job is. It must be horrendous, Chris.
Thank you, Tel. We've got a Terence here who's, I don't know if it's you typing away quietly whilst you're speaking as well. Maybe he's been channeling in his inner Terry Pullinger. He says, grow some balls at local level. And I mean, the workers doing and getting your own way is not the union. Time to stick together. So there's lots of that as well coming through. People are sort of saying, you know, and this is a point, isn't it, around, you know, people who are being treated terribly. And, you know, we're not going to say that that's not the case, because we see hundreds and hundreds of comments saying that is, you know, you do have the ability to enact change locally as well, don't you? And within your unit, without waiting for you to deliver whatever agreement might come our way.
Yeah, you know, we've got a lot of experienced reps. So we had reports last week where, you know, it's the daily stuff as well. It's not just about these talks that are going on. It's what's going on day to day is causing lots of anxiety and lots of problems in the workplace. And I suspect a lot of people feeling they're not supported. What we done, Chris, was when the pandemic first came in, we aligned an EC member to every division, and there would be weekly, if not daily, contact with our divisional reps, with area reps, with branches, and we all sort of committed to give a maximum support, because we wanted to know what was happening in every single workplace. So that's how we flushed out where people didn't have enough PPE and all that stuff. If you remember, it seems like a long while ago, but it's not really that long ago. But that's how we gathering the information to take the real live issues, you know, into management. So we've raised that with management this week, and we're saying we got to go again, to be honest. And I'm saying that to all of our reps and structure as well, branches, everybody. We got to up our game again as a structure union, from national down to local level. We need to understand and try where we can to give the support to all of those local reps. That's what they need, because a lot of them are on their own, aren't they? They've not got a committee around them. They're on their own trying to deal with this, what must be a tidal wave every day of issues in trying to work in the current conditions and also get the stuff delivered as well. So we're going to reinvigorate that, Chris, to try and ensure that we get the right information so that we can see whether it's just certain areas or if it's everywhere, what we can do in the field structure while we're in these talks. And if not, what issues we also need to raise in these talks about some of the daily issues. We had this week, for example, in the talks, suddenly the officers were getting an email saying, look at this. It was a document called Conversation with the CWU. None of us have ever seen it. And it was about resourcing in an office. And it looked for all the world to us that they were trying to push the light touch revisions. Management are saying it's been out since March, or that went out a long time ago. And it's a bit funny how it surfaced in more than one division just this week, as far as we were concerned nationally. But that's the stuff we need to know about so that we can challenge back with management. If you're putting guidelines out about resourcing, if you're true to what you're saying about us building a new relationship and trust and everything else, then you should be negotiating that with us. You should be talking to us about it, not just putting it out there and then suddenly there's outbursts, or some people resist, some people don't in some of our workplaces. But our message has always been the same. Listen, don't get yourself into some ridiculous sort of trouble there, but stick together. If something is blatantly wrong, if something's not safe in your office, then you've got to stand together. Don't just let one person up there to try and deal with it. The management locally have got to understand that everyone in that office is not happy with that situation. It's unacceptable. And if it's like I say, it's in the interest of your safety or anything else, then it's got to be challenged. These managers can be challenged. None of them. We don't accept the role of the dictator. It's you at work, and you want to do your job as best you can possibly do it. And if that ain't happening, then challenge. And if something has to come through our industrial relations framework, local reps, get it on, push it up through the framework. We have still got a legally binding industrial relations framework. If there's proposals or things that are unacceptable, you get it into the framework, you get your area rep involved, you get the divisional rep involved, etc., etc., and if necessary, it comes up as high as our level. But no, we are still, even during this, it is absolutely imperative, I believe, that people do challenge on the issues that are affecting our members or concerning our members.
Thank you, Terry. Fantastic. I didn't want to. I left Adam's point there on screen. I wondered how do I go about being a rep, because we've also had quite a few people saying they haven't got a rep, and people. So a couple of things really. I want you to answer that question. And whilst you do that, Terry, I say to the members, because I've had tons and tons of thank yous on the screen to local reps. Maybe now is the time in the comments to say thank you to your local rep. Name him or her, and that'll be a massive, massive boost to them. Something as simple as that. And while you're at it, as Terry often says to you, and I often say to you, Raw Mail will undoubtedly be watching this session, and maybe it's a time in the comments to let them know you're still standing with your union. So Terry, question, if you like, is how do people go about becoming a rep for this great union?
Well, and Chris, you just made a point. Maybe we should think about having a national rep and members day where we talk about some of the, the great stuff that our people do locally and the sacrifices those people must make. How do you become a rep? Well, I mean, you contact your branch first. You must know what branch you're in. If you're not, then you need to, I suppose, get hold of us at headquarters, email us or whatever. But get hold of your branch, make it known that you want to be the rep. We've been doing one-day training for local reps, especially new reps. During this pandemic, we've developed something or tried to that we could do online or virtually to sort of train someone or give them that support. But if you get hold of your branch, and I'm sure that they'll try and make sure you've got as much support as possible, because becoming a rep, you obviously need some tools, and you need to understand, how to use agreements, how to use the industrial relations framework. When I talk about the IR framework, that's what that is. That is our guide for reps when they're challenging managers. So yeah, get in touch with your branch, and thanks for putting yourself forward. Proud of your son. That's great stuff. Let's hope we get some more. But Chris, maybe we could look at that, highlight, especially during the pandemic as well. Because I mean, all the time we want to honour our local reps and our members, but maybe there's a time during this pandemic we should actually bring a spotlight onto that, just what people have been having to deal with and what they're going through.
Yeah, and I can see. I think you've hit on something there, Tel, because I can see dozens and dozens of people thanking local reps. So that's a really nice thing. And if you haven't done it yet, please do. So we're getting towards the end. So if you want one or two more questions, fire them in. I'm just going to now ask Terry. You said at the top of the show, Tel, that you got negotiations next week. Sort of set out, heading into them, what the priorities are, how you think that's going to go. Who's with you, what the officers with you on those negotiations.
Yeah, we got it's all the national officers. Mark Bolsh, Davey Robertson, Andy Fury, Cole Maiden, who's acting at the moment in what was Ray Ellis's old job, and we have secretarial support. PAs come in. We've had Chris Bennett and Dave Wilshire in there. Diane White. Well, I can't name them all because there's a structure around it. What I can say is that they've all been fantastic. In my opinion, they've done you all proud, whether you believe me or you don't. I can assure you, I'm a straight old goer, and these people are doing you proud in what we're trying to negotiate there and confronting some of these issues. We are meeting management face to face until there's another lockdown or whatever. We have gone back. We're traveling. We're meeting them in London at their headquarters. It's a bit strange. The buildings are empty and a lot of London is empty. But, we are doing that because without doubt, the talks are more effective when we're face to face. So we made that happen. We're back in with them next week, Chris. And as what I shall be emphasising is what I've said on this live Facebook thing. I've tried to honour what we, that we can't really talk about some of the detail. I'm desperate to talk about the detail, not to cause problems, but so that people understand, well, one, what we disagree with and why things are taking so long in the talks. But I think it's important that when, management are coming out there, they're saying, how proud they are of everyone and what an amazing job you're doing. During our dispute, they wasn't shy about coming out and coming straight to you with a 3-year pay deal to try and get support away from the trade union. Now suddenly they've gone all shy and they don't want to talk about it and don't want to tell the people what it is they think pay could look like. As I said, I shall be pushing next week. You've got to come out. You've got to make a formal offer to us. You've got to come out and tell the people what it is. And if people ain't bothered about that, that's not the issue, then fine. Tell this union, what I mean? We're smashing away trying to get the right deal for you. You let us know. Of course, there's priorities, but whatever it is, whether it's pay, whether it's how we use new technology, whether it's how we change a delivery, whether we should be working harder and faster, whether we should do a revision every 6 months, etc., etc. I want you to know. I want everyone to know what it is we're dealing with in these talks, so people can make their own judgment and give it some thought. People don't just because things are bad at work, don't just get stuck into your trade union or anything else. This is a massive problem. This is about our future, and we're determined to shape the right future. So in the talks next week, Chris, the first thing for me on the agenda is, listen, let's start opening up what we're talking about. I'd like Royal Mail to do what I'm doing now. I'd like Stuart Simpson to do this for an hour and take whatever comes from the field so that he too, or any of them, Akim Dunwald, any of the senior managers, do this for an hour and see what people are saying to you. If they're telling you totally different things from us, then that would be useful, wouldn't it? Because we would see the contrast between the union doing a meeting like this online and seeing management doing it. But they need to hear. They need to hear what's going on at the moment. They need to hear people's concerns. And I think they need to hear what people think about what they are starting to think would be a fair offer to our members, and that our members would grab it with open hands, because I don't think so. I think one of the reasons they're shy is if they put out at the moment what they're suggesting to us, I think they know there'd be uproar, and I think they're trying to hold off because they know Christmas pressure's coming, and the last thing they want is a disgruntled workforce. My view is they've already got a disgruntled workforce, and that's why the 1-year pay deal was a strategically the right thing to do, to give our people a bit of a lift as we go into what I think is going to be a horrendous period. They've already broke all records with the amount of packets and parcels. Can you imagine what it's going to be like during the Christmas period? And they're going to want the best of our people, and I don't think they're going to get it unless they start rewarding our people or treating them with respect, and, by the way, honouring the statements that they've made, including the joint one they signed with me and Dave Wald.
Thank you, Terry. So I've got 2 more questions from the members, and I'm going to give Terry the chance to sum up. Before that, I should let you know that we've had 14,500 people online, so that's fantastic. Loads and loads of support, so brilliant. It's vital, though, that you help us with this, because once Terry closes the session, it stays online. It's a recording, so keep sharing, keep liking, keep tagging your friends in those comments, and thanks for all the work you do to help us with that. Terry, I've got 2 questions, if you like. One is it's not really a question, but this has come up regularly, and I think you wouldn't want me to not put it to you. And it's Chris, please get this point across. We're beyond tired. People are breaking down. We can't cope. There is quite number. When I say number, into the hundreds of people just saying we're at breaking point. This is all too much for us in the workplace now. So I know you'd want us to pick that up, Terry.
Oh, definitely, because I can imagine it, and I have great sympathy with it, and as I keep saying, we try to inject that into the talks, and if in some ways it gets poo-pooed, you know what I mean? We're not truly representative. So this is my point. I've got to be honest. This is my point about local people and our local reps pushing stuff up through the IR framework. Management need to understand where their employees are. They need to understand this isn't just about a union trying to create a row, because we're not. We're busy in the talks, by the way. We're not. We're trying to get a deal. We're not out there trying to create a row. You'd soon know about it if we were, and I think everyone knows that through what we've done over the last 3 years. We're not doing that. These are things being raised from the street, and that's what's got to happen. We've got to find a way, and for our branches and our structure, we've got to find a way of getting this up, because I don't know whether they do selective visits or whatever, management, but I tell you now, they don't seem to think there's the problems out there that someone's expressing there, that people are at breaking point. That was very much the tone of the message I got today and the pictures that were sent to me today. And what can you say to people? It looks horrendous what that person's being asked to take out on one job. You know, our people, if we're not doing 2 in a van, how are people getting out to their first port of call, their first bit of work? What happens when all that work suddenly appears out of a van on the pavement or whatever? You know, there must be so many issues attached to it. And in many ways, it must be demoralizing. This wonderful vocational sense of purpose that I genuinely believe the vast majority of postal workers have got, must be being tested to the full, which is why they deserve a reward. They deserve a reward. They deserve a lift, and they deserve some help in these workplaces. And as we go into the Christmas pressure, if the company don't realise that, then I tell you now, people will, if they're not now, they will absolutely be at breaking point. I don't know why we'd want to do this to decent workers that have served this country all the way through this pandemic. What sort of thank you is that? That if there's a local manager who knows there's people at breaking point, then grow a backbone, mate, and represent them people. You're managing them. Their health and their welfare is just as much part of your responsibility as trying to drive a budget. You look after them people. They deserve better. You get that. You make that representation locally, and we will make it nationally. But get it up through our structure, our reps. If this is true, area reps, divisional reps, branch, we got to up our game here. If we got people at breaking point, you've got to get that information, extract that information, not only challenge locally, but get that up to us. And then we'll challenge Royal Mail. What are you going to do about it? Stop just putting out silly messages about everyone being happy at work and etc. Deal with these issues. These are human beings under immense pressure, and they need a lift. They need a morale lift. They need some help, but they also need rewarding. And at the minute, that's not on the table for this year.
Thank you, Terry. Final question. I'm going to give you the chance to sum up. Tony asked, why are you ignoring our questions about the shorter working week? We're not, Tony, my friend. There's simply thousands of questions. And now it's not being ignored. It's going to be asked to the Deputy General Secretary. Over to you, Terry.
Well, this is another one where people tell me that this is an activist debate and it's not where the people are. And I struggle to believe that our people can't comprehend how important the shorter working week is. This is something, the 35-hour week has been something our union has campaigned for all the time. Over 30 years I've been a rep, and our union, it's always been our union's policy to achieve that. Everyone, including academics, for years have said with new technology and automation, what should happen with that as that comes in and takes jobs out, people should get a shorter working week. That's how you protect full-time jobs. People say, I'd rather have pay. Well, yeah, I can understand that. You'd rather have pay at this minute. But I think in the long term and from a strategy point of view, you would rather have a full-time job. And we must protect as many full-time jobs as possible. That's not ignoring part-timers, because, of course, with the shorter working week, the hourly rate goes up and part-timers get a pay rise. Some people only want to work part-time. We get that. But we have got agreements that say that we will maximise full-time jobs. Predominantly, our jobs will be full-time. And that is possible. That is possible under whatever the new delivery structure is, or the changes to this company because of automation, or the declining letters, growth in parcels. All of that's possible. But a 35-hour week is how we protect a full-time job. A 35-hour week with meal breaks means with the work getting harder, you're not working as longer days. It gives you the opportunity for the imaginative duty patterns that management are trying to take out. It gives you opportunity for 4-day weeks. It gives you opportunity for 3-day weeks, especially if you want to deliver parcels right across the day and everything else. It gives lots of potential to do the right things. And if the job's getting harder, not only protect full-time jobs, but give people the relief they need, the time off to recover they need, their bodies need to recover. Otherwise, we will drive our people into the ground. So I don't accept anyone who says the 35-hour week isn't important. It is important. And I hope everyone can give that some thought and understand that. But for me, more importantly, this company agreed in the 4 Pillars Agreement that we would move to that. So if we're embracing all these changes, if we're embracing new parcel hubs, new technology, to a level that's acceptable to us. But if we are embracing all that in our industry, all we're asking is honour our agreements. We must achieve that shorter working week, or we will see thousands and thousands of full-time jobs go out of this industry.
Thank you, Terry. So, I mean, all that's left to do for me now really is to say to you, have you got a final message that you want to get over to the members tonight?
Well, I hope we got some over, despite Mark's concern that none of this was worth listening to. I hope we got some messages over, that we got to up our game through our structure. And when I say that, I'm not digging out our reps. They might think, bloody cheek, I'm working hard here. I'm sure you are, but we've all got to up our game. We're having to, up our game at a national level as well. But what is crucial, I think, is that everyone starts to feel the heat here, and I'm talking about management as well, because you get the impression they don't believe it's majorly difficult at the moment. Certainly not to the extent that they're prepared to reward you for what you're doing. And we need to take a little bit of focus off of shareholder activity and get back into looking at our people, not just how this company will look in the future, but how we're going to continue through this pandemic and through periods like Christmas. So although we're entering Christmas and we could have more parcels than we've ever seen in our lives in our industry, we will get more letters, because there will still be Christmas cards. I'm sure about that. People will still, you may even see a growth in the letters as well. Well, that's going to be a double whammy, and it's going to become increasingly hard in the workplace. And at the moment, it doesn't look like there's any any light at the end of the tunnel on this pandemic. So wake up here. Let's treat our people right, reward our people, get them in the best position. Let's try and get the best possible response for Christmas. And also let's create some space for us to talk about the future and get the right deal for our people. But my message is, all of us, from a union point of view, up our game here. Seems like there's some serious concerns and some serious stress and pressure on our people in the workplace, and we need to draw that message out. We need to deal with it, but we also need to make sure that message comes back through our organisation and comes into these talks in a way that management understand that what we're saying is true, and that they see it as a priority, that we deal with it as well. Stick together, look after yourselves. If something's not safe, you stand together, and as I say, protect yourselves, protect each other, and look after yourself and all, because if we're putting under that pressure, we can't have people at breaking point. That's unacceptable.
Okay, so we're back together. We lost each other for a second there. So just to say thank you to Terry first of all. So we tried something new tonight. We tried to mix the best of the two types of sessions we've had. We've put lots of your questions on the screen. We've ducked absolutely nothing. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I can see, by the way, and I should say this, Terry, to you, because I know part of our approach here is to make sure we don't duck any of the difficult questions. There's also hundreds of people on there saying thank you to yourself, thank you to the union, and how proud they are to be members of the CW. So thank you for Terry for your time, but most importantly from Terry and myself, it's thank you to our reps and our members out there who are keeping this union going. We'll keep you communicated. We'll keep things coming to you throughout these negotiations. Have a good night, everyone.
Cheers.